Hold caller. All right, we're good. We're recording. Okay, so really quickly, welcome everyone. Thank you for taking some time out today on a Monday morning to chat to us and to come see this webinar on exercise. So this is going to be run by Coach G. I'll hand over to him really shortly. For anyone who's never been part of a Healthy Hospo webinar, this is essentially one that we're running, our first ever movement webinar. So we're going to be talking about posture, exercise, recovery, hospo schedules, all that kind of stuff. Coach G is a legend. He is an expert at what he does. So throughout the session, just like take time to think about any questions you might have. If there's something that you're burning to know about, maybe it's something, I don't know, exercise or movement related, save those questions. You can chat, you can pop them in the chat box, or you could save them towards the end. But yeah, just keep in mind that this is a great opportunity for all of you to have access to an incredible expert. Coach G has kicked people's asses in the Lion Gym for the last 15 years, and I think he's really looking forward to starting to work with the hospitality community as well, and we're stoked to be able to give you guys access to him too. So yeah.
Beautiful.
Cool. I'll let you take it from there, and I'll just kind of wrap up at the end, and feel free to jump in, ask questions, and say hi.
Awesome. Okay, team. So obviously today is all about movement. So because it is about movement, and we are going to be moving, and I am going to be coaching you today, you do need to turn your cameras on. All right. So I do need to be able to see you. I need to eyeball you. And there's a specific reason for that, because we are going to get into actually observing how your body moves. As well as that, you will need the following things. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to go grab these things. We need a pen and paper. All right, pen and paper. You need a towel. Not going to be sweating though. Okay, I'm just going to use it for something else.
We might take 2 minutes to go get the towels.
Yeah, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. And you'll need a wall, just a wall. Could be a door, a wall, or anything. All right, so if you don't have a pen and paper and you don't have a towel, here's your chance. 2 minutes. Go. Here's your first movement lesson. Move.
I'm going to have to go get a tea towel from the office kitchen.
You could use a jacket if you got a jacket hanging over your seat. That would work. While you guys are doing that, I will start the slideshow. Ba-boom. Need elevator music in between.
Yeah. Shout out to our run clubbers as well, who've come in and signed up. Super stoked to work with you guys.
Yeah, well done, guys. It was a pretty big walk up, eh?
Yeah.
Chat coming through, which is really cool. I think some people have gone to Hamilton to get a towel. Beautiful. I think we're all back. One more. Cool. All right, ladies and gents. So I'm calling this one Movement is Life. Now the point of this whole seminar is to give you a little bit of education and a bit more understanding of what your body can actually do and how that applies to not only how you perform on a daily basis, but how you can protect yourself from injuries long term and basically get the best out of your body. Because ultimately what I want to help you achieve is an idea that I've kind of been embracing for a long time in my life, which is that you only have one body. That's all you get in life. And so you may as well make it the best one you could possibly have, right? So it's a bit of a celebration of movement and all the things that can come from being a good mover. So to kick things off, I wanted to pose a question just to get the juices flowing. And so you can pop yourself off mute, because I'm going to go around the group and just see, if I was to pose this question to you, what would be your answer? Nice one, Harry.
It could probably fly.
I was not expecting that.
Just like probably just heaps of endurance, like be able to run, swim for a really long time, or do really great like bursts without becoming completely wiped out. Yeah, just really great cardiovascular fitness, I think, strength as well.
Very nice. So strength.
Big athlete kind of body.
Yeah, cool. So that's your aspiration. What about anyone else? Should we go with Emma?
Similar really, endurance, like being able to do, like I've always wanted to do like a triathlon or something like that. And a couple of years ago I did a relay swim across the channel, but I'd love to be able to do it solo.
Wow. That's awesome.
I also would really like to be able to do those press-ups where you clap in between, just because they look really fun.
Cool. Okay, so fun. Remember that. All right. So we've got some big aspirations like triathlon and endurance, but fun. Okay, super important. When we movement is about learning, and learning should be fun, right? Sometimes we forget that. I think the fitness industry is responsible for making exercise less fun sometimes. It gets a bit too serious. And so fun. Love it. Johnny, you got something for me?
I'm going to hop in with the whole endurance. I've always, again, wanted to do a triathlon, and it's just building up to it. Obviously, Hospo life is quite punishing, so something that would allow like a Saturday close and you to feel like eager to go to the gym the next morning would be perfect.
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah. What does fitness mean to you?
Health.
Yep. Nice. So trying to improve your health.
Yep.
Yep. I like the challenge too. There's a lot of people stepping up to challenges as well. It's this whole thing. Is Kaylin on the line? Is she?
I think he's.
What would it be for you, mate?
I quite like the idea of being able to explore places that I'd like to go to, you know, so see a tree and be able to climb it, or a mountain and climb that.
Yeah, cool, man. I love that. I love that a lot. Yeah. I'm going to show you something very shortly that leans into that specifically, and how human beings developed all of our biomechanical traits. And it was through exploration and the mastery of our environment. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Nice one, guys. So that's just something to get your ideas flowing around this movement module, and what you could potentially get out of it, specifically when it comes to the activations that we're planning on running and getting you guys moving. We obviously understand that hospitality is quite demanding. You guys move more, by the way, just as a real positive for Hospo. You guys move more than most of the human race, for example. So corporate life is quite challenging when it comes to getting regular movement, whereas Hospo, you're actually moving a lot more. So that is a real positive. But as one of you pointed out, it's quite demanding, right? And so being physically resilient is important to maintaining our health while we're doing a job like that. So let's kick into this. So the overview of today's session, guys, this is what we're going to get into. I'm going to show you a wee video shortly, which kind of sets the scene for what I want to achieve with the movement module and the activations that we're doing off the back of it. So we're going to get into what movement means to us as human beings. We're going to get into something that I believe everyone should have been taught at school a lot better. It should have been a real focus. And there's an example of that from a program in the 1950s, which I'm going to show from John F. Kennedy. We're going to get into how to reconnect to your body, which is something I observed as a trainer over 15 years. something called gross motor function disorder. It's a big word, but it basically means that people don't know how to move because they never got taught. And we've got to have a little brief look at genetics and what that means to you as an individual, and because everybody's bodies are unique, and why when you're selecting the style of exercise for your particular training program, you do have to take into account what you have to start with, because that will bias the way you design your program, for example. Okay. So the next up is we're going to have a little look at a little 3-minute video. And I just like this because it kind of points out some big things, both from a societal perspective and from an individual's perspective around how we can think about exercise differently and the importance of exercise from that health perspective. Cool?
If we don't turn this around, this generation will be the first in the history of our country to not live as long as their moms and dads.
Ready up. Last kick. Look, we were given a gift 50 years ago that made our lives better. This is a challenge for us all.
I practiced this program from middle school all the way through high school.
But this will spread to every school district in the United States. All of us will participate, and in so doing, we'll be better citizens and happier ones.
I was hired in '82 by the 76ers as the very first ever in the history of professional basketball full-time strength and conditioning coach. Dr. J and Moses Malone. And in my first year, we won the world championship.
Point to any part of your body, and we'll start quoting literature, medical studies, into the tens of thousands of articles about the benefits of exercise.
Exercise grows the hippocampal parts of your brain. That's important for your memory.
I could see a difference from when I didn't do exercise before teaching reading and when I did do exercise before teaching.
The more fit the kids are, the better they're doing in school.
So I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I was raised by a single mother. Grew up in inner city, single parent household. My mom didn't have time to get us involved with sports. My activity level, once it dwindled, I filled that with video games and TV, and my grades went from AB to down to DF.
It's about how do you make the best learner.
Once we see that, you need some forward-thinking schools that are willing to basically restore what we once had, which was mandatory physical fitness.
83% drop in discipline problems from one semester to another, just with that introduction.
I didn't find that there was much racism when you're playing sports.
We saw that racism and gang affiliation stopped at the locker room door.
Doing something together is huge, and exercise is something that has the ability to unite.
That was the beauty of the program. It was designed to benefit all of the students, not just a few.
I have dealt with bullying in the past, like in elementary, but not here at Prescott.
We're in it together. Our motto was all for one, one for all.
The training I had was at the root of all of my success.
Every day you were met with these challenges. Just loved being challenged every day. Climbing rope was super.
And we always wore shirts, unlike the guys, so.
It helps you grow stronger mentally and physically.
It helps children how they can be successful in life.
Like, it pushes you to your limits that you didn't know you had, and so it makes you really determined to finish what you want to finish.
What we found with our physicians is 80% of them had undiagnosed medical problems, and we've seen almost all of that disappear with this activity.
People don't realize what eating was. They don't understand that physical education could do all this. It's got to turn around.
It all comes down to the individual. Can you make an individual love being healthy? That's, I think, the secret to all of it.
We don't turn this around.
Oh yeah, I love this. Oh, here we go. Thank God. So that was very American, I know that. But it brought up some valid points for me when I watched it. I actually got shown the original video of that 20 years ago when I did study sports science. And a couple of things that stood out to me were some of the things that people acknowledged in that video were the togetherness and camaraderie that exercise can create. And I do think as a society, we've kind of lost that a wee bit. We used to get it through things like social sport. You know, we used to be a lot more sporty. Sport has decreased dramatically in the last 20 years. So we used to be one of the largest rugby playing communities in the world, and we're down to like 300,000 players. We used to have 600,000 players, and that's our number one sport, just as an example. They talked about the reduction of racism and this connection with one another. So these are powerful ideas that exercise can help us to not only from a community perspective, bring us together and make us happier, healthier individuals, right? Which is kind of the whole point of Healthy Hospo, building a healthier, happier hospitality community, right? That was Tim's vision. But from a health perspective, one of the things that I guess we kind of forget from time to time is that we are kinetic beings, all right? And that means that when we move, we work. And I think, Kaylin, you brought it up. You talked about exploring the environment, and this is the case in point. The whole evolution of human beings was around developing ourselves and from a naturalistic perspective, climbing trees, climbing mountains. You guys all talked about taking on challenges. And in our days today now, we don't get these opportunities, right? These opportunities have been taken away from us just from the nature of what we have to do to earn a living and what we have to do on a daily basis. Positive emotion is attached to motion, so the psychophysiological connections. So the more you move, the happier you become. This is a real thing. And we do see massive increases in things like anxiety and depression right now, right? Endorphins. So if you haven't heard of endorphins before, endorphins are the most powerful anti-inflammatory you can possibly generate inside your system. And so endorphins come from exercise, and a lot of you referenced aerobic activity. So aerobic activity is one of those activities that gives you a lot of endorphins specifically. Now, if you're not familiar with why that would be a smart thing to do, reducing inflammation increases your age, essentially. So you're in a constant battle all of your life fighting inflammation, and the more you're inflamed, the longer you spend inflamed, the faster you age. And so that's the challenge for your nutrition, that's the challenge for your exercise, it's a challenge for your sleep, to help you repair and recover on a daily basis so you can live a long and prosperous life. Huh? And then finally, genetics, right body, right activity. Just want to point out too that this guy here that you can see on the right, that's Charles Darwin. He invented the theory of evolution. He is probably the most poorly quoted individual on the planet. Often when people talk about human beings and our ability to physically adapt, they talk about only the strong survive, which was not what he actually said. He said something much more intelligent. He said it's the most adaptable to change. So people who are more resilient to change, people who have open, and this can be a psychological idea as well, people who are willing to change and have a willingness to change can handle the things that come at them on a day-to-day basis. So remember that as we go through this, because there'll be some things that'll throw at you from a movement perspective that'll make more sense. So what we should have learned at school, the power of posture. I got taught this many years ago when I started learning yoga and Pilates. I was introduced to this idea of what posture can do for us. And this section is the section that I wanted to bring up from specifically the hospitality perspective and what you guys do on a daily basis and what you could do just at your job to help improve your body position, your understanding of your body and how you use your body on a daily basis. Because sometimes we forget that when we're at work, there is opportunities to use our bodies in ways that we wouldn't normally do if we are not aware. All right, so we're creating awareness around how we hold our body, how we position it, and how we use it. So we're going to have a look at a few different postures. So the first posture I call the skater. Now everyone will know a skater because they're the person that when they wear a pair of jeans, it just slips off the back because they have no bum. So the skater tends to be quite toe dominant. They tend to have a little flexed knees and they look like they're leaning back like they're in a breeze. Yeah, so it's a very unique looking posture. They tend to be very quad dominant and languid. So they don't tend to be overly rigid in how they hold themselves. They just keep the walk quite has everyone seen Conor McGregor when he does that walk around the ring? Does anyone know who Conor McGregor is? The MMA fighter? That's the skater. That's how they walk. They walk like their shoulders are behind their hips, which is hilarious to see. Yeah, a lot of young dudes do this. It's kind of just, and there is a connection, like I said at the start, to how you think. So how you hold yourself is how you think. Which is the psychophysiological connection. So people who are kind of relaxed and quite languid and don't really have any cares in the world, they will kind of hold themselves like this. Yeah, which is your classic 18-year-old male at the skate park. The next one, and we're going to talk about how we can correct this, by the way. The next one's the lumbar lordosis or duck bum, also known as the stripper's bum or jock. So you can see with this particular individual, they have a very extended lower back. And guys, just as we're going through this, I just want you to observe and just go, which one of these is me? All right, because I am going to put you to a test in a second. So the lumbar lordosis person tends to be very athletic. They tend to have a butt that sticks out. Okay, it's very observant. They tend to have a lot more what we call dopamine. Dopamine is the motivation hormone, which is one of the reasons why their spine goes into that shape. All right, so the chemicals in your brain dictate how you hold yourself. I'll say that again. The chemicals in your brain dictate how you hold yourself. Yeah. So your thoughts control your posture. It's a real thing. Yeah. The next one on the list, and this tends to be individuals who are taller. They just naturally kind of fall into or slump into this position. The thoracic kyphosis or lurch. And what tends to happen with these individuals is because they are taller, they spend a lot of time in their life looking down, yeah? And it's easier to look down or flex from your upper back than it is to hinge at your hips or tilt your head forward. And so with these particular individuals, we tend to see a drop in serotonin, the happy hormone. And so if I said to everyone right now, do depression, if I said to you, just do depression, what would you do? What would be the first thing you do? Yeah, you'd do that, right? You'd drop your chest, you'd look down at the floor, because everyone knows what that looks like, right? It's almost intrinsic. How do you know that? Because you recognize it, right? You recognize unhappiness. And so this particular individual does, if you hold yourself like that all the time, it's very, very hard to maintain your happiness because your serotonin goes down because of the postural positioning. And that's not talking about nutrition or environmental factors as well.
That would be a pretty common posture as well for anyone who has to work over the bar all the time and like hunch over, or like chefs who are plating and like 4-6 hours.
Correct. And then finally, we've got the gamer. And this is where chiropractors and physios absolutely love what's happening to our youth at the moment, specifically the younger kids who don't really have an understanding of how to position their body. If you get stuck on an iPad and a phone all day, you'll end up with your neck in a very forwardly translated head position, which is very hard to fix, by the way. So of all those postures, they are all completely fixable. Yep, very easily actually, with a little bit of attention. But the neck one is probably the hardest to fix because there's a lot of tendons and ligaments without fleshy tissue in your neck. And when it gets calcified, which is what happens over time, it's very hard to fix it. And you end up with something called Dowler's hump on the top of your neck. So if you know someone like that and you catch them doing that, you want to get them correcting it very quickly, especially when you're young, because once it's been there for, say, 5 to 10 years, it's not going back. So there's an idea that I want to share with you today, and this is the idea. As we go through these the movement module and we get into like the activation specifically, I want you to think about this. I want you to think about moving intentionally, not habitually. All right, so from day to day, have fun with moving your body, right? And you're going to do that through being intentional, because it's so easy on a day-to-day basis to not think about what you're doing, specifically when you're doing the same job, right, over and over and over. It just becomes habitual. Now, the problem with that is we slip into bad habits. Yeah, Laurie just highlighted one. If you're stuck over the top of the bar all day long, it's very easy just to get into that forward trend, so that flexed torso position. If you're over the top, if you're in the kitchen, same thing. You're doing the same habits over and over and over, and it's not that easy to pull yourself out of them unless you apply some sort of intentionalism to it. So here's your first little test, first little breakout. So the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to use a wall. All right, and you're going to adopt that position there. Okay, so this is called a wall squat test. Now the wall squat test, now what's the significance of it? Well, the squat, being able to squat to full range protects your back. All right, that's the first fundamental principle. And the reason for that is if you have functional hips, you put more weight into your glutes and less weight into your back. So as your hips tighten over time, if you're not using your hips to full capacity, what ends up happening is your glute muscles switch off and your back muscles start doing more work. And this is one of the most common reasons for back injuries. Yep. And so what happens when the glutes tighten is the lumbar spine and the knees have to do more work. All right. So we're going to do a quick little test. This is just a test to give you an understanding of what's happening in your body right now. Yeah. And this is that part where I was talking about at the beginning that in schools, this is like a fundamental skill that should be taught, but it isn't. Yeah. We kind of glorify cross country and rugby and things like that in this particular country anyway. And we don't really focus on basic mechanics. So using your wall, guys, I'm going to give you 60 seconds. This is your 3 points. Toes on the wall, feet shoulder width apart, hands above the head. See if you can walk over to your wall and do a full squat. All right. I don't anticipate many people being able to do it, by the way. All right. 60 seconds. Where you go. So toes on the wall, feet shoulder width apart, hands above head. Where you go. There's a few smiles and laughs going down already. Good.
My flatmates just walked in on me doing this.
Do our feet have to touch the wall, or?
Yeah, feet should be touching the wall, mate. That's the proper test. Yeah. Okay. Bring it back in. Bring it back in.
So hard.
Yeah. Okay, chuck your microphones on. Let's unpack this. This is always entertaining, by the way. Who could do it?
Nope.
Nope. Who's seen that test before?
Never.
Yeah, exactly. So it's an orthopedic test. It's actually been around for forever. And the reason for it is to give you that understanding of where you're stiff and restricted. Because where you're stiff and restricted is where you should be applying your time. Because if you're stiff and restricted now, and say you're in your 20s or early 30s, it doesn't get better, it gets worse, and it amplifies as you go past 40 and 50. And that's when those kind of degradation injuries start to creep in, like lower backs breaking down, tendinopathies in the knees, tendinopathies in the shoulders. And so one of the things we're going to do, if you join us on the WhatsApp group, is we're going to get into, and I know we've got the lovely Kat McDonald, who's going to be taking us through yoga and addressing some of these ideas and some of these movements that are going to help us move our body better. Yeah, so we can unlock. Yeah, because the first step in the process is what we call mobilizing. Okay, so mobilizing is the focus of moving the major joints. So your major joints are your 4 ball and socket joints. So you've got your shoulders and your hips, and you've got your spine. Yeah, so all the other joints are relatively simple. So you've got hinge joints in the other areas, very simple joints. They don't normally go wrong unless you've had an impact injury. Okay, they normally stay sweet all of your life, unless the ball and socket joints and spine start to break down. Because once they start to go and you get restriction, then those other joints have to try and help you out and make up for the lack of movement and the lack of activation, which is the next part. So we've got mobilization, and where we're going to move into next is activation. By the way, there's hundreds of those movement tests that we can do. That one's just one of the most simplest you can do to give you quite a global understanding of how you're functioning. So we're going to get into engagement. And this one's always interesting for me, because this is kind of where I thought, for me, school PE should have been really good and should have taught all of us how to engage these basic fundamental muscle groups. But when you ask people to do it, most people can't do it again. And that's a travesty of the education system. We should be teaching people how to engage their body. It's just a basic fundamental understanding. So then we're going to look at how to apply that as well. So we've got positional overcompensation, and what that means, if you think about this from a sporting perspective, or we could call it an art actually. If you think about a group of people who have the most amazing postures, what springs to mind?
Yogis.
Yeah, yogis. Yep.
Ballerinas.
Boom, ballerinas. Yeah, that was the one I was thinking of, but yogis as well. And the reason why, and if we think of those two particular activities, they have very well set positions, is this practice. This daily practice. That's all they do. They're not overly heavily compensated movements. You're not doing lots of strength-based activities with those two particular, or the sport and or the art, and that you could call yoga an art as well. But you're just practicing every single day, body position, body position, body position. And so that's called positional overcompensation. You're just practicing. But if you're going to put it into some sort of strengthening setting, so obviously we've got some activations coming up where you need a bit more than just positional overcompensation, then we need to do something called forced physical adaptation. That's strength training. Yeah, that's where strength training comes into play. Yeah. And so this is where when we do our Thursday sessions, if you're joining us on our activation, we're going to, or if you're joining us on the WhatsApp group, if you're out of town, I'm going to be putting exercises in there that will support the doubling down, essentially, of your postural positions and your postural strength. Now, you guys will probably know this more as core training. You would have heard that term probably more. But there's a few different aspects to it that we're going to cover off now.
Everyone here is part of Run Club as well, so.
Everyone is on Run Club?
Yeah.
You guys are going to get the whole lot. You're getting the red carpet. You're getting the red carpet roll now.
We've got a few of us missing, but you guys get the first hand, the live experience here.
Excellent. So we will be talking about this a lot. So reconnecting to your core. So what does that actually mean? So there are 3 major areas of your body and muscle groups specifically that we need to be very good at switching on. Yeah, so when it's called for, we need to be able to just dial it in. And so the first part is around a set of muscles in the pelvis. All right, so you've got 2 very, very important muscle groups in your pelvis. You think of your pelvis, by the way, as the foundation of a house. So your center of gravity is just around that bottom disc and the top of your sacrum. All right, so the sacrum is a part in the center, that little triangle, and then you've got a 1 disc sitting on top. That is the center of your gravity. Okay, so what you'll observe is in shorter people, they have very speedy movements because their center of gravity is closer to the ground, and in taller people, they tend to have more languid movements because their center of gravity is not closer to the ground. Right behind your pelvis is your bum. Right in front of your pelvis is your lower abs. So first little connection test. If I said to everyone, engage your bum, what would you do? Go. Engage your bum. Yeah, so someone change shape. What would you do? Yell it out. What would you do?
Squeeze your quads.
No, squeeze your bum. Yes, you got it.
Right.
You got it. Yeah, squeeze your bum. Yeah, squeeze your bum. So in this particular test, what we're doing is we're just identifying or feeling what the glutes do, right? So in this position here, you'll see me do it straight away. Bum. And as soon as I squeeze my bum, my posture changes, all right? Because your glutes are connected to all of your postural muscles. There's a reason why all our strongest muscles are in the back, by the way, guys. All right, because that's where the power comes from, all right? So it comes from the posterior chain, comes from the back of our body. But just having strong glutes alone doesn't mean anything, because you can remember that guy, that little kyphotic, the sway back guy. That sway back guy doesn't have very good abs, right, or girl. And so what we need to do is engage our lower abs with our glutes, right? So this is this idea of setting the foundation straight. Now you could literally do this at the bar, right? You could do this in the kitchen. You could do this anywhere. And specifically, if you've got to pick up kegs or tables or anything and move stuff around, that's the chance. That's your chance to really amplify it and practice it. So if you take your hands like this, guys, just give me 2 L's and put the index fingers on the front of your hips, just as you are in your seated position. And then all you're going to do from here is we're just going to manipulate our pelvis. All right. So we're going to arch our back as tight as we can. All right. So you're going to go to a sway back as hard as possible. So you're engaging your back muscles. Sweet, look at you guys, nice and tall. This is good. All right, then you're going to go to the opposite position. So I want you to tuck your tailbone under and flex your lower back. Press on your lower abs now. What's happening? Can you feel them? Yeah, they're on. Good. All right, now find a happy medium between those 2 points. So now the foundation of the house is set. Okay? So that's what we call neutral pelvis. Okay, neutral pelvis. Now that is the optimal position to position your pelvis. That allows us to get the greatest amount of glute recruitment, and it allows us to get the greatest amount of ab recruitment at the same time. Okay, so if you're wanting to do any activities, that's the position we need to focus on. Now there's kind of two parts in the development of that we need to be aware of. One is the first part we talked about, which is the squat test. If you're too restricted, you can't engage your bum. If you're too restricted, you can't engage your lower abs. And what happens with that is over time is a degradation and injuries. Okay, so we need to move first. We need to get mobile. The second part is reinforcement. So what you just did is you connected, but you would have to go and apply that now to picking up your tables at work, moving your kegs, holding yourself in that position, and ultimately strength training it. So you would reinforce it across time, and over time, your posture will come back to neutral. So no matter what posture you have, you can recorrect it, right? With some of these challenges or tips that we're giving you today. So the foundation of the house is most important, okay? Pelvic neutral.
You can pick like activities to do it with as well. So like when I used to pick mint back in the day, that would be like okay, I'm picking mint, check my posture.
Yep. If you're in the bar, guys, if you're making cocktails, there's perfect opportunity to do it there. This exercise here, all right, if you're shaking something, excellent exercise to start reinforcing lumbar pelvic control. The next one, and this is probably the most poorly performed, and just actually on that note too, how does that apply to running or swimming, which some of you guys referenced that you wanted to do? Well, in swimming, you have to hold a tail tuck. So you can aquaplane through the water. Yeah. And then that makes you cut through the water faster. So the better you are at that pelvic neutral, the faster you swim through the water. With running, you need to develop your lower abs more so that your pelvis doesn't, because you're running in a forward motion, right? And it's very easy for your pelvis to arch. Have you ever seen that when people are like running long distance and they look like they're just fully distended but sunken down? It's got bent knees and they're just almost like climbing into the ground. They look like they're going on an elevator down because they're just so fatigued and they can't hold themselves properly. And this is where strength endurance comes into play, strength endurance. So when you first start a running program, you'll feel like, you're good for like a K or half a K or whatever you can maintain. And then it just starts to melt, right? And that's fine because you have to build conditioning to be able to hold the position for longer. But let's get into one of these ones that's a little bit more technical. So the shoulder girdle is it's more complex by quite some margin. It's not as simple as the pelvis because you've got sliding shoulder blades and then you've got the ball and socket joint. And unfortunately, in the world right now, everything we do is in the front, right? So we work on computers in the front, our hands are in the front, our eyes are in the front, we drive cars like this in the front. So everything is front dominant. But remember what I said earlier, the posterior chain is the most powerful part of your body. So all your big back muscles have to be strong to be able to hold good posture. Okay, so we're going to do another little test to reconnect you to your shoulder girdle, your shoulder blades. And so for this one, we'll do two things. This is where you're going to grab your towel. So we'll test your functionality and then we'll test your connection. Okay, so what I want you to do is I'm going to encourage you to go nice and long. Okay, so if you got tight shoulders and you know you got tight shoulders, just take this one easy. All right, and then from here, what we're going to do is sitting up nice and tall with good posture, with our abs on, shoulders up, pass through. Now, when you do this, your elbows should stay level, shoulders should track naturally through. So that ball and socket joint should be able to slide and glide smoothly. Beautiful. All right, did anyone find that challenging?
Yep.
Some of you guys were pretty good, to be fair. I'll give you the pass mark. All right, so if you feel any of these things happening, you're going up, one shoulder's down, one shoulder's up, that shoulder's got an issue. All right, it's got a restriction, just like the hips when we talked about the glutes earlier. Or you feel this happening, you're going over and one arm wants to bend and you want to try to navigate it, that's that shoulder again, all right, or vice versa. So that's restriction. So we've always got to eliminate restriction first before we get into anything else. Then we can go after activation. So the activation test is this. And everyone, you will find this hard because it's just not a set of muscles we use that much anymore, unless you're a regular gym goer and you're doing something like pull-ups or rowing on a regular basis. So give me 2 thumbs up like this. 2 big old thumbs up. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Pull our shoulder blades back as tight as we can, like you got a pen in between your shoulder blades. All right, squeeze the pen. Okay, now turn your thumbs out and pull back as hard as you can. Nice. Okay, that's not the test. Here's the test. Squeezing those shoulder blades as tight as you can, not letting go of them. Remember, you're imagining you've got a pen in between them. Bring your hands back together and clap without losing the squeeze. Don't lose the squeeze. So you've got to keep the pinch in your shoulder blades the whole time, and you should be able to touch your hands in the middle. How'd you find that?
Tough towards the end.
Really hard towards the end. So for that person who has that flexed upper back, yeah, or if you're feeling like you've got a bit of a forward head posture, that exercise there is just the start of relearning how to engage all of your back muscles, but position it correctly around your spine. Yeah, because it's so easy to get into that stooping position, right? Especially if you're studying, you know, you're doing a lot of work on the computer, you're doing a lot of writing. It's so easy just to fall into that pattern. And how hard is that just to keep that squeeze? It's ridiculously hard, right? And it shouldn't be. It should be quite easy. It should be natural for us. What would make it more natural is pulling-based activities. So remember, we are 98.8% the same genes as a chimpanzee. That's how close we are to our cousins. Yeah, we have mandible thumbs. We have shoulders that can move 960 degrees in different directions. So we are designed for climbing, pulling. Swimming would be an example of that. And so if we're not doing those activities on a weekly basis, we lose that. It's the old adage, if you don't use it, you lose it. And so it's one of the main reasons for the loss of shoulder function, thoracic stabilization, which is your upper back. The muscle in there that's the most important, we talked about the glutes and the lower abs, your lats. So your lats are your second largest muscle in your body for a reason. They are your postural strength. So the more dominant and more well-rounded and developed your lats are, stronger your posture will be all of your life. Strong lats equals good posture. Yeah. And so when you're doing these positional practices, that's what you're actually doing. If you're positioning yourself correctly, you're actually engaging your lats and your shoulder blades and your abs, obviously. Yeah. And then if you're developing it, then hello, you end up with the back like this young woman here.
Coach G, what are some like basic exercises that someone who wants to develop their lats, like what would you say?
We're going to get into activity shortly, but I guess the thing for me with this is to do something you find fun. Yeah, someone talked about it at the start. They said like, I want to have fun doing a swim event or something. And that for me is you've got to try things until you find something that you enjoy. Yeah, I'll never pipeline someone into one activity. I always prefer people to choose what they enjoy, but make sure it's holistic enough that it doesn't isolate you in one form of activities. We do this thing, and we do that, and it's completely natural. It's an unconscious bias where you just do the thing you're good at, because it's reinforcement, right? You get positive emotion from doing the same, from feeling a sense of achievement. So you could do it again, you do it again, do it again. Hey, look, there's nothing wrong with that. But every week, you've got to put some time aside for working on your weaknesses. Yeah. So if you want to be well-rounded and you want to have a healthy body all of your life, you can't just do the things you're good at all the time. In fact, it's one of the lessons of doing CrossFit all of my life. So the CrossFit's one of these horrible programs that you go to the training knowing that you're going to do the things you're bad at. And there's not a lot, you've got to find some enjoyment in that. And it's really hard, right? Because you know that what you're going to do today sucks. But the ultimate outcome is that you end up being better at something you were previously bad at. And so postures like that, trainings like that, you can still focus on the things you're good at, but you want to still make sure you have a bit of time each week to practice the things you're bad at. I'm going to show this video because this guy does a really good job of talking about this particular activity. Obviously, as you probably realized, I'm quite big on squats. Squats from a health perspective. Just to back that up a bit, Western society has the highest case of poor lower back health in the world. Eastern society doesn't. Does anyone know why?
Toilets.
I was going to say toilets.
They still go to the toilet the way humans are designed to go to the toilet. It's a very, very important principle. So when you are practicing this move on a daily basis, you don't get into those problems with restriction. And that if you look at them and from an anatomy perspective, they are more designed to do this particular activity well. Whereas if you're from a European descent, you'll have longer femurs, and this exercise does get a little bit more challenging. We're built for long distance running a bit more. And then if you, as we go through the genes thing, I'll jump into this a bit more, but I just want to show you something because this is really subtle. But if you are, say, at work and you're wanting to lift something, this gives you an understanding how to get under it and position yourself well. And this guy does a really good job of coaching this woman.
All right, here's a teachable moment. Face me, face me. Watch here. And I want you to watch specifically the hips as she performs this rep. We're gonna see kind of a piggyback fault that we just talked on with Elisa with a little bit of hyperextension, but I'll show you it's a little more subtle, but a little more insidious when we go into a loaded situation. So Terry, your job's to squat, my job's to help you squat better. Okay, so let's watch a couple of reps here. Ready? Hands go up. Come back up for me. Remember to do the brace like we talked about. So hands are up, we're set. Ready and squat. Good, and up. Now watch the hips one more time. What we're looking for, she might fix it, but watch me here. What we're looking for is she's doing this here and then squatting. She's trying to go back and then down. Watch again. Do you see the butt kick out there? Good. Now, if I do that with my pelvis and I give it that nice tilt forward like that, what muscle have I disengaged? The abdominals. Remember, the spine is wedded to the pelvis, and that is hyperextension of the low back, right? In this case with Terry, what I need her to do is just sit. Because if I told her to sit to like a high bar stool, right? We're at the bar, we're getting some drinks, it's happy hour, right? And I'm like, oh, let's sit on these bar stools. Is she gonna be like, oh yeah, let me go and sit down? No, that's really weird. That's really awkward. No, she's just gonna keep her pelvis in a neutral. She's just gonna sit. That's all we're gonna do because these movements are natural. So in this case, Terry, I just need you to sit down. That's it, okay? Yeah, oh my gosh, did it good? It disappeared, didn't it? Look at that. Good, we're gonna set one more time. I just wanna make sure it's not a fluke. We're gonna, look at that, that's it. Now she's going a little low and losing her lumbar at the bottom, so I'm not gonna let that slide. Hold, that's it, now a little bit lower. There, that's it, come back up. And that's
cool. So the whole idea there is that there's this opportunity on a daily basis when you're at work to practice these particular activities, right? So this would be like a lifting scenario. If you're not going to get under something and pick something up, then you can just be at the bar or at the if you're is anyone a chef? We got any chefs? Damn it, I need to get some chefs. We're poorly represented in the chef department. So that these kind of activities where you're just positioning, that's how easy it is. But that's also how easy it is to get it wrong, eh? Did anyone see it when she first popped out? It's subtle, eh? It's quite subtle. But that exercise there is probably the most poorly performed exercise on the planet. And on that note, there is no such thing as a bad exercise. Only poorly performed activities or exercise. Okay, there's some funky exercises, but then there's no such thing as a bad exercise. Because if you're competent, and that's the difference here, we're talking about technique now. If you're competent, you can do whatever you want. If you're strong enough, you can do whatever you want. All right, but ultimately, it's going to come down to your mastery of your own body. Yeah, your competence level. How well do you understand yourself, and how well do you know how to move your body? And so the core skills that we want to leave this section with are, what we just saw there, that young woman learning, she learned how to engage her lower abs. Yeah, and if you're going to go into a lifting motion, then obviously you're going to move into a squat. But just that whole tucking of the tailbone, because as you get fatigued, you will quite naturally fall into kind of poor orthopedic positions because the body is inherently lazy. Shoulder girdle stabs. All right, so using this exercise and see if you can reconnect to your shoulder blades as often as possible, so that your thoracic spine, your upper back, doesn't get all lazy. All right, get all folded over, and that'll keep you more positive. Yeah, because that produces a different neurochemical. And the last one we haven't practiced, but it's very simple. If you just go like this with your hand, straight in your chin, that. All right, so it's not down, it's not up, it's just back. Yeah, and you'll feel the neck muscles in the rear of your spine contract. That doesn't really get done on its own. It gets done with this. Shoulders back, chin back, all right, with your lower abs. So if you're looking for a little postural reset on a daily basis, while you're at work, while you're in the gym, when you're about to go warm up for a run, whatever, here's a little sequence that you want to try and go through, all right? And the idea is you want to feel it. Okay, you need to feel it. You need to feel the muscles. Yeah, because it's no good just to think about it. You actually have to feel it. Because if you've done a whole day on your feet, you won't function it well. If you've done a whole day in a chair, you will not function that well. All right, because you have to move and engage your body to get it to function better at a higher level. All right, that's probably the most important piece there. Oh, here we go. Next one.
All right.
No, had enough of you, bud. Okay, let's have some fun with genetics. I won't spend too long on this, guys, because I could go way down the rabbit hole, and we don't want to do that, eh, Laurie? So we'll keep it pretty high level. But I will let you ask me questions on this just in case there's anything burning for you specifically that you want to know. So the main reason for this particular section is around avoiding injuries. So I've talked about those kind of 2 or 3 key areas. You've got the ball and socket joints and your spine. My observation of training 6,000 people over 15 years was that these are the 3 areas of the body that degrade over time. And it's primarily because of our lifestyles. Yeah, it's just what we do on a daily basis is not what we used to do. Yeah, it was only 200 or 300 years ago that we were still running around every day, climbing trees, swimming, lifting, doing the things that human beings were designed to do, biomechanically, genetically, and then, you know, the Industrial Revolution, everything else happened in the technology age, and so things have changed. So now we have to be intentional, right? We have to now go and find the things that we need to do on a daily basis because our jobs don't necessarily allow it. So this is called phenomics, and what we're looking at here is kind of 3 different body types. Okay, so we've got what we call an endo, a meso, and an ecto. So an endomorphic individual is a metabolically dominant person. So that basically means that a lot of their strength comes from their digestive tract, their ability to be heavier and move heavier loads. They tend to like to move a bit slower. Yeah, and because of the additional body weight, long distance sports don't tend to be their bag, but they tend to make amazing swimmers, just as a side note, from a breathing perspective, flotation perspective. And then one in the middle there, that's Ronda Rousey, by the way, the MMA fighter, is what we call a mesomorph. Mesomorph, that's what the entire fitness industry was designed for. So if you're mesomorphic, the fitness industry was designed for you. And this is one of the fallacies of the fitness industry, which is it's not designed for everyone. It's designed for that specific person. Now, they tend to have fast twitch muscle fibers, yet they tend to be visual cortex dominant. So they like visually stimulating things. They're fast. They tend to have more muscle mass, tend to be a little bit shorter and squarer in stature because they've got more testosterone. The endomorph, just to quickly come back and finish the hormonal stuff, they tend to be more empathetic. So they like to do more group-based activities. They don't like to do individual-based activities as much, whereas the meso tends to love doing individual-based activities or competitive-based activities. And then finally, on the far side there, you've got the ectomorph, which is me. They like to analyze and think. So they like to do technical-based activities. So they need technically stimulating, neurally stimulating activities for them to to be in their kind of flow state or optimal state. So to give you a bit more perspective around that, what we want to do on a weekly basis is we want to make sure that we are taking care of what our genetic needs are from a biomechanical perspective. Yeah. But you're not at the mercy of your genes. You can do whatever the hell you want with your body. That's the reality, right? But whether or not that's going to be a good long-term strategy for you, that's the part that you have to consider. Right? So I've trained endomorphs who wanted to be marathon runners, and they no longer have any knee joints left. I've trained ectomorphs myself who wanted to be CrossFitters, and I'm no longer CrossFitting. I've trained mesomorphs that, well, mesomorphs are very athletic, so they're kind of the punks that can do most things, but they have their own sets of challenges internally that they run into hypertension with their hearts and lungs. So when it comes to, if you're an endomorphic person, you're going to probably want to spend more time of your week, 80% of your week, doing things like swimming, load-bearing activities, and activities of, when it comes to like cardiovascular exercise, that are lower in impact and probably less in duration, lower in duration, because the longer you move a heavy body across time, the more you start to run into trouble. The mesomorph, you need visually stimulating stuff. That's why you make really good martial artists, MMA fighters, boxers, sprinters, but the whole entire fitness industry is set up for you. So you've got lots of choices. And then the ectomorph, you're going to be an aerobic dominant person, but you do need to focus on balance and dexterity and things that are going to make you use your technique, because you'll get bored really easily. Yeah. And you don't have a lot of muscle mass to save you from breakdown. So you do need to make sure that you're applying at least some level of your week, most of your week, to technical development, right? Just to give you a bit of an understanding of that. Now, those exercises you can see on your left there, you've got strength, locomotion, and balance. That's the entire training program of every single gym in the world, right? So you've got the 6 major, what we call primal patterns. So we practice one today, how to squat. But you've got pushing and pressing. So pressing something above your head, pushing in front of your body. You've got pulling yourself up, pull your own weight, which is fundamental. You've got lunging and lifting. Every single machine, gym exercise that was ever created was based on those 6. Those are the 6 movements of the human body. That's it. Crazy, right? So if I wanted to make you all stronger, I'd just make you do those 6 exercises, and you could walk into any gym and kill it if you were good at those 6 particular activities. Yeah. So those are the exercises that on a weekly basis we want to try and apply. But to give an example of the endo would be doing a heavy squat, a heavy push for lower reps, like 0 to 5. The meso would be doing around 8 to 12 reps at a lighter load, but a lot faster. Plyometric push-ups we talked about. They're going to be really good at plyometric push-ups. It's going to be a great exercise for them. And then the ecto would be doing a push-up on a BOSU, because they need neural dominance. So we can all do these kind of styles of exercise, but we just have a preference. And that's where the 80% of your week should be spent, in your preference for your genetics and your biomechanics. The endo runner is going to be a short distance runner. So endos, the longest distance I like a endo to run would be about 11.5 Ks. About the Speight's West Coaster, something like that. Because that's about the furthest we want them running in terms of long distance. The ecto, they're a 42K runner if they want to be. The meso can get away with 21s, can go to 42s, but it's not recommended. And like I said earlier, the endo would be they're going to be the best swimmer by miles, by some margin. So if you look at like a Michael Phelps, for example, he's an endomorph, big, tall, wide, V-taper, big feet, perfect for swimming. But if you put him on a track, would he go very well? No, right? And so it's a person living in his genes and doing what's best for his particular body. And then the balance-based activities, you're going to get a lot more ectomorphs, unless you're doing something like shot put for throwing. The ecto and the mesos are going to be really good at climbing, or really good at rotational-based activities, because they have smaller trunks, they move faster. And so these exercises in the balance section, that's going to be a lot better for those last 2. But The endos aren't good at balance, but they should do it, and they should do it for 20% of their week. So if you are an endomorph, 20% of your week should be spent working on the weakness of balance, because you won't naturally be good at it. The ecto, you're not naturally good at strength. So 20% of your week should be spent doing strength. And that would help you cater for what you're not going to be that great at, which is developing muscle mass, as an example. So before I leave this section, is there any questions that you want to ask me on genetics or biomechanics? I can spend 5 hours on this if you want me to. But if you've got any burning questions on it, hit me with them now.
What's a good way for us to find out what our type is? Like, is there a website we can go to?
There is indeed. I'm going to give it to you straight after this.
That's going to be my question.
Yeah. It's very interesting, the science of it. I've been studying it for the last 2 years. It is a godsend. I think there was a time when we kind of just threw people into everything. Again, I come back to high school sports and PE. You just get chucked into everything. It's not a bad thing, but there is definitely space for us to get more tailored and specific and customized for people now. And it does make a difference, man. We're talking about longevity. We're talking about injuries. We're talking about mental well-being. You know, like if you're doing the things your body's naturally designed to do, your sense of achievement, your sense of person, your sense of self is going to be so much better, rather than trying to chuck you into a marathon when you're a bloody endomorph, or make you squat heavy when you're an ectomorph. It just doesn't make sense anymore. Not in 2020 anyway. That all good? That's a bit of a minefield, that one, but I wanted to put it in there because I just wanted to give you an understanding of what I think about when I put training programs together. And so if you are, all of you guys are joining us on this running program, you'll see how I manage endos versus how I manage ectos. We're going to do a very cool first day, by the way, guys. If you're jumping in tomorrow, we're going to talk about breathing. And I'm going to make you do a breathing exercise. It's very, very interesting, with a mouthful of water. So it's a nose breathing exercise only. So you got that to look forward to tomorrow. So to finish off today, guys, we're going to talk about the last thing. We're going to bring it back to, you know, what we do at work from a recovery perspective. And so the kind of general recovery tips that I would throw out there are things like having 2 liters of water before 2. First of all, actually, why is recovery so important? You will not improve or perform if your recovery is not on point. So you're at the limit of your capacity to recover. All right, so growth, fitness, well-being, it all stems on your capacity to recover and turn things around. Because if you're doing, say, a running event, for example, your running training is only as good as your recovery. And even from a psychological perspective, yeah, if you go through a trauma or you go through something, the benefit of that outcome is based on how well you recover from the trauma. Yeah. And so from a physical perspective, 2 liters before 2 is always something we throw out for people to make sure you get enough hydration on a daily basis. Using whole foods, naturally sourced foods, is super important. I will guide you through performance nutrition as we go through the next 8 weeks too, guys. And so it's a really important tool or tip to make sure you have energy, sustained energy throughout the day. Because if you're upping your training and you're going to work, we don't want you to fade off during the day, right? Where you're just like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. I can't keep this up. So refueling windows post-workouts are going to be super important. Carb backloading, which we'll talk about more. Making sure that we don't overload caffeine. Yeah, it's so easy to do, right? You get fatigued. You're like, oh, just pop another coffee, pop another coffee. Coffee is a nootropic. It's beneficial to a point, and then it's not beneficial anymore. All right, now it just creates anxiety. It affects our sleep, inflammation. When coffee is present, by the way, when you've got lots of coffee in your system, you can't lose weight. So if any of you are doing, I know some of you guys, as we walked around the other day, you talked about wanting to lose weight. You can't lose weight when you drink too much coffee because you've got to address the coffee, which, by the way, is the same with alcohol. So when you've drunk, alcohol's in your system, it stays in there for 24 to 48 hours. And that through that period of time, you can't lose weight. And you're heavily inflamed. And so your body has to, and this is the inflammation story again that we talked about at the start, you have to be in a state of, or give your body the opportunity to be in what we call homeostasis, which is not inflamed. Yeah, and that's a constant battle, right? Because emotions make us inflamed, our environment makes us inflamed, our nutrition makes us inflamed, but all of these things that I'm just walking you through, they do the opposite. They reduce inflammation, they're analgesic. Movement. So even when you're sore, you still have to move. Yeah, even when you're sore, you still have to move, because it's sitting still or being stagnant that amplifies soreness. So remember, we're born to move, we're kinetic. So the more we move, the more we circulate the blood takes the nutrients from your gut, for example, feeds it to your muscles, feeds it to your tendons, feeds it to your brain, and then you start to heal. And then obviously when you sleep, you amplify that. So we need to move, yeah, as much as we can during the day, specifically after hard sessions. And stretching for an hour, for every hour of concentrated work, 15 minutes of stretching should be applied. So stretching is like the poor cousin of all exercise, right? Everyone knows they should stretch, but nobody does it because it's boring and it sucks. So hopefully we can get you guys a bit more passionate about your hitting your trouble spots by using like that wall squat, for example, and identifying where if you applied some stretching, for example, you would get a lot of benefit. And remember, we've actually got a stretching session a few times throughout the program where we're going to teach you exactly how you can start to optimize your body again. And then if I shift over to like a shift work session, for example, one of my concerns for that is the sleep, is making sure you get enough sleep. So we do need to think about the half-life of caffeine, how long that lasts in our body. So if we're going to have coffee before we go to work, and you're starting late, so you're starting at 3 in the afternoon or 4 in the afternoon, you know you're going to go to 2 in the morning. Just consider that it takes 6 hours for caffeine to kind of diminish enough so it doesn't impact your REM sleep. Fuel up for the day and fast when you're working in the evening. So eat during the day, not during the night. It's a bit of a new thing, but eating during the night will impair your metabolism long term. It's a bad strategy. It's a really bad strategy, right? So if you're finishing work at 2 and you're getting that bowl of chips, the standard bowl of chips at the end of a shift, that's a bad strategy. All right, chucking a whole lot of high glycemic carbohydrates and fats into your system, that's not going to be beneficial. All right, it might feel like it is, but it actually isn't. That feeling like it is just emotional. Yeah, you had a hard day at work. You just want to chuck something, and you're kind of hungry. It's actually better to go without. All right, that's a much better strategy, and learning how to do that as well. If you have to eat, it's better to use earlier in the night, for example. So earlier in the night, if possible, a shake or soups, so liquid-based fuel, because that'll digest quicker and that won't impair your metabolism as much as a big hearty meal like chips or a feed, burgers, whatever. So you want to try and get that as early in the evening as possible if you just need to sustain yourself, and you want to make it liquid-based. Yeah, and the kind of liquids you want to use are alkalizing liquids. So green fuel as much as possible, vegetables, because those will alkalize the system. That reduces inflammation, whereas protein and carbohydrates will accelerate inflammation, and you'll be asking more of your system. When it comes to hydration in the evening, that does improve cognitive performance. So alternatives to caffeine are things like hyperhydrating, but with a little bit of salt and lemon. All right, and that will improve the synapses, brain synapses in your body. Salt is really interesting because it's smaller than water as a molecule, so it accelerates the effectiveness of hydration. You don't need much. If you've got like a liter, like a water bottle, and you just dump like just the tip of the teaspoon of salt in there and squeeze some lemon in there, it's equally as effective for your brain as caffeine. It doesn't give you the up, but it gives you clarity, so it stops brain fog. Yeah, and that will stop some of the need to eat later in the day. And when you arrive home, using things like hot Epsom salt baths, which is just a magnesium bath. Epsom salts is about $15 at the supermarket. If you're upping your exercise, one of the things I would recommend is getting into thermoregulation therapy. So this is what this is. Hot Epsom salt baths will support recovery. It'll help you sleep as well, which is the number one thing that supports recovery. And just if you have a bath, if you don't have a bath, just having a hot shower in general improves circulation and rapidly cools your system. So definitely a good strategy for when you arrive home late from work. And going to work, cold therapy. All right, cold therapy will take away the need for caffeine. So when you get hit with really cold water, it releases something called vasopressin in your brain, which is a concentration hormone. So you become very focused when you hit yourself with a bit of cold air or cold water first thing before work, or if you even need to get out and go for a run. Because motivation is going to be a thing, right? As we go through the next 8 weeks, how do I motivate myself? Chuck yourself in a cold shower for 30 seconds or 60 seconds and watch your motivation change dramatically. All right, it's literally it's a motivation hack. So vasopressin, if you're not familiar with that, is prefrontal lobe dominant. So you immediately become more intellectual and more motivated when you've got that hormone present. That's why you shiver after it. It's what makes you want to move. Pretty easy to do, and just walk straight past your letterbox and away you go. So to wrap this up, before we get into the questions to finish off, guys, so my key takeaways. Movement is better together. All right, 100% better together. I'm almost 40 years of age now, and I have 2 trainers. I have a kickboxing coach. I have a strength training coach. I have a group of people I train with that I have trained with for 20 years. And I know that if I don't show up for them, I don't show up. It's so much easier to do exercise together. So as we go through this process, teaming up with people is going to be super important. It helps you build accountability and that age-old adage of discipline. Yeah, because we do have to be disciplined, right? It's hard to fit this stuff around our lives because our lives are so much busier than they've ever been. And the other thing is just finding like-minded people. We don't have our social sports anymore. They're not as easily accessible as they used to be. So when you find a group of like-minded people, they're the ones that should help you aim up. All right, they're the ones that will support improving your current ability. Yeah, and do not underestimate the importance of that. That's why it's number one. If you can find people that are better than you, that's even better. Yeah. So if you're at the bottom of the chain right now thinking, oh my God, I'm going to join this running group, there's going to be all these amazing runners, that's good. That means you're going to be an amazing runner really quickly. It's one thing I did all of my life. I found the strongest person in the gym, trained with them. I found the best boxer, I trained with them. I found that's how I did it. That's how I got to where I got to with my own training career. Someone said fun at the start of the workshop, and that is absolutely what this is all about. Sometimes we get anxiety around exercise. We get a bit like, oh man, not this again. And I do blame the fitness industry for that. We've kind of made it less fun than it used to be. Movement is about fun. It's about being a lifelong learner. There's no such thing as failure. There's only learning. So every time you feel like you haven't done very well at a session, that's just learnings. Yeah, that's just you to go, okay, what did I learn today? How can I improve it? And come back into the session again, knowing that that's what the thing that you're going to focus on. Yeah. And ultimately turning this into mastery. And how cool is it that you're going to learn to master your body? That's the goal, right? And that's a lifelong goal, is mastery of your own body. It's literally what we got put on the earth. Yeah. Consistency, and this is in reference to psychology, positive psychology. So when you are consistent, and it doesn't matter if it's just any movement is better than no movement, right? Sometimes we build it up in our heads, and this one's for the perfectionists. Hands up if you think you're a bit of a perfectionist. Yes, Laurie. Oh, we've got a lot of perfectionists. Oh wow, the high achievers are here today.
This is the one hack that has helped me a lot.
Okay, so this is all for you guys, man. Over responsibility people. Any over responsibility people? I can't do it today. I have to do this. Oh, I can't do that today because I have to do this. They have to peoples. That's an over responsibility program. So those 2 people, this is for you. Something is better than nothing. Small regular achievements will create a snowball effect, and life is all about building momentum, right? So even if you don't get out and follow the plan, don't dump the plan because you missed 1 session or 2 sessions, all right? Just reset and go again. That's the most important thing. And this is where, back to number 1, things are easier together. Get back on, tap your buddy on the shoulder and then get out and do that session when you can. Or going for a walk, doing your yoga session, just do something, because something is better than nothing. Because if you're
I find that's helpful as well if you've got only an hour before shift and you're like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to fit in my 45-minute run. Then it's just like, well, just go for a 5-minute run or go for a 10-minute run. because that's for me is my biggest barrier is like, oh, I don't have enough time.
Oh, it's so easy to fall into the trap, right? The trap of negative loops. So when you have perfectionism, you negative loop a lot, and you're like, oh, I'm not what I used to be, so I won't start. That one. Or I missed the last 3 sessions, so I'm out. I can't show up. Yeah, and so that just negatively loops you, and you start believing your own hype. You start believing your own rubbish. So small regular achievements. It really is about that. Like today, I'll give an example. I told Laurie, I got 2 sick kids. I was on a medical conference all weekend, and I came in today going, oh God, I'm not as prepared as I wanted to be. So I just set myself a small goal. Okay, right, what am I going to do? Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open my computer. Like literally, it had to be this simple. Micro goal. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to go through my presentation. I'm going to make my notes on what I want to amplify for you guys, what I want to really dial in. Cool. All right, check in with Laurie. And it's just that. It's just small little achievements, and then it just builds momentum, right? And then after this, I'm going to go for a run because I've got to practice my session with you guys tomorrow. The last one, or the second to last one, and this is probably the most impactful day to day is setup and preparation. And these are just like simple things you learn when you play sport, right? If you want to get out for a run tomorrow or a training session of any sort, pack your training bag the night before. Okay. And the All Blacks will talk about this all the time. So the mental preparation is more important than the actual doing. Hey, because it's so easy to fall off. So pack your training bag the night before, because if your bag's there, it's beside the door, you're ready to go do what you do. If you're just going out the door for a run, then have your running shoes and your running gears right there. So okay, there they are. They're set up on the side of my bed, and I'm going to get up and I'm going to do this. Because when the alarm goes off, if you've got to get up early and do it, you want to be ready. You don't want to put barriers in front of yourself, because that's easy to do, right? It's so easy to put more barriers in front of ourselves. This one's my personal favorite. If I shout myself a new training shirt or a pair of shoes, I feel like a dick if I'm not out there running at my best. Yeah, because I get embarrassed if I have this new stuff and I'm not actually using it. Eating to perform, we're going to cover that as a group. We're going to get stuck into this idea of maintaining energy throughout the day and giving our body the best ample opportunity to recover and bounce back, so that we can and setting measurable goals. One thing that, and I'll talk about this with you guys a lot, one thing people do is they set obscure goals. And the reason for that is because they don't want to be accountable for them. Because if I set an obscure goal and I don't know what it is, then it doesn't really matter if I fall off, right? But when you have a really clear, measurable, specific goal, it holds you to account. So one thing I do want you to focus on when we are obviously moving towards the Spates West Coaster, but is thinking about, for you personally, what are the things that you want to achieve out of this? Yeah, and get really specific. Like if it's running a time, if it is being better at the hill type running events, if it's trail, if it's speed, get really, really specific about what you want to do as we go through this next 8 weeks. And then lastly, but yeah, you only live once, man. So make the most of it, guys. And that, for me, that's what my whole career was about. That's what movement is all about. It's about having fun with your body. Yeah, lifelong mastery. So before we talk about the community stuff, does anyone want to hit me with some questions? Nope, good. Swish. So everyone's going to show up to work tomorrow. Abs on, lats on, shoulders tight, away we go.
I think that's really good. Cool.
Man. Okay. So, things that you will need to know. I'm going to be monitoring Strava every week. So we're going to use Strava just because it's a free app, so we don't have to pay for anything. And it allows us, or me, to check out and check in with you to see how you're tracking with the training program that we've put together. So is everyone familiar with Strava? Yep. Used it before?
Yep.
Perfect.
Strava enthusiast.
And so the program's it's been broken down into kind of 4 sessions a week rather. 2 of them are coached, 2 of them are not coached. And so those 2 that are not coached, that's the one where I kind of want to check in with you and just make sure that we've set our baselines well. And then from there, we can start to really think about, okay, what is a good pace for you to run? What are your challenges as a runner? And you can use it to, test your times against others. We've got a bit of a fixed distance challenge every week. So you'll be able to see what other people are putting up. And you should only use that as motivation. Yeah, it shouldn't demotivate you, perfectionists, okay?
I was going to say, I'm going to make it pretty clear at the actual run club tomorrow as well that there are going to be very different levels of runners, and also run your own race. Like the last thing we want to do is get people to injure themselves because they're trying to keep up with the regular runners. Yeah, just run your own race, do your own thing.
100%. And then I think you guys have already jumped on, but if you haven't, WhatsApp. So WhatsApp's the one I'm going to use for dropping videos, and any other additional content that I start creating along the way, because we actually do, in the middle of this, have a nutrition workshop on gut health with Dr. Ann Shivas. So the way I've kind of we put it together is we wanted to focus more on the performance side of nutrition for the first couple of weeks, which I'll just do through videos in WhatsApp. And then when we get to the midpoint, we'll do a bit more of a health nutrition piece on gut health specifically. So watch out for that along the ways. And I know Laurie, thanks to our friends at Spates, has got some giveaways on the journey for outstanding performances, people who are recording. And that's another reason why we need to record, is so when we have ways we can analyze how we're performing, it makes my job a lot easier in terms of setting those parameters and goals that are ideal for you, because everybody's body is unique, right? You're not all the same, and you'll have different challenges along the way that we need to try and address. So my friends, you've already signed up. Laurie, do you want to wrap us up?
Cool. All right. So it's kind of like a little small crew that's left here, but we'll be distributing this recording out for anyone who couldn't be here at the moment to watch. But yeah, just to quickly wrap up, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow for the run. Everyone's coming, right? Everyone that's here?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. First ever run that we're going to do. So pumped for it. I think it's mostly technique based tomorrow. So we won't be doing like a huge heavy run, but we'll just be giving up programs, saying hello, getting everyone to meet each other. And like G said, it's the biggest reason for doing this and kind of getting this, like this whole idea was basically born out of trying to give everyone in hospitality a way to hang out outside of alcohol as well. So get to meet each other, get to do something healthy, and just do something, yeah, connect in a different way, which is really easy when you don't work in hospo, but like, because everyone has their social soccer clubs, but when you do work in hospo, I feel like everyone's hours are always conflicting with each other's, and yeah, so we're just trying to do something different in that sense. Feel free to pass this recording on. We'll kind of give away the links to it. So any friends that you think might find this really interesting, pass it on. Make sure that, you know, we'll give out the run programs as well, which people can follow even if they're not part of Run Club. We have that nutrition webinar that G was talking about coming up in 4 weeks. So make sure you block out time for that. And we'll also, because everyone here right now is Auckland based, just want to keep you in the loop that down the line, closer to the start of November, I think, just needed to finalize a date, we'll be doing an in-person kind of mental fitness and resilience workshop as well. So keep your eye out on that. I think everyone here is already part of Strava, right? And everyone here is already part of the, okay, if you're not, check are you part of the WhatsApp group, Emma? Yeah. I think there's an email. Have you got the email for the WhatsApp? There's I'll send you another one just in case to make sure you're part of the WhatsApp group. Definitely talk to us on it. When you're out running by yourselves, share your victories. I think this will be really cool if we start to really build that community. And so first of all, thank you for being here, making the time. I'll have to harass the others who didn't make it today, get them to watch this. But also, yeah, we'll be kind of introducing everyone, giving you all the info you need tomorrow. I'm really excited. I hope you guys are too. Yeah. Any other questions before we kind of wrap this up? No? Cool. All right. Well, I will send you guys a little bit of a note with this recording, and we'll see you tomorrow.
See ya.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Busy too.